What's up, honeys? Welcome to your last Beesness of the month, your final update with the buzz of the arts world from this last week. I hope you have all of your frights, all of your tricks and treats ready to go for Halloween in just a couple days here. You know, I'm excited for it. I have yet to decide myself what I'll be going as, but I hope something exciting and a little challenging. As always, our sources are linked in our source document in the episode description. If you've got any follow-up questions or anything like that, feel free to go ahead and look them up. And now what you've been waiting for, your headlines. A few follow-ups from that week. The first, that the Frank Lloyd Wright skyscraper owners have filed a new lawsuit over its halted sale. The newest was filed October 21st in Washington County, Oklahoma, by Copper Trees Group, the owners of Price Tower since March of 2023. The suit claims that the activities of the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy have slowed its ability to sell the building in recent months. It is the latest follow-up move in a legal fight that started back in August, when the Conservancy filed a legal claim against Price Tower's owners after it became clear that Wright-designated fittings and furniture had been removed from the tower and placed with 20th Century Design, a mid-century design dealer out of Dallas, Texas. These actions, undertaken by the Copper Tree Group, are problematic because such items were protected under an easement agreed upon in 2011 between the Conservancy and the nonprofit that previously ran the building. Copper Tree Group has claimed that the easement was quote-unquote extinguished after it acquired the building. According to the Conservancy, though, it received assurances from Copper Tree shortly after this point that, quote, no further objects from the collection would be sold and that the group would be permitted to discuss the easement with any potential buyers of the building, end quote. The point of Copper Tree Group's latest lawsuit is to make the Conservancy's August one basically null and void, to prevent the Conservancy from further interference in the sale of the building, and they hope to award Copper Tree Group a minimum of $70,000 US in damages. We're paying attention to this development because the suit represents how far Copper Tree Group will go to clear the way for the sale of the tower after its abrupt mid-August closure. That the group appears to be saying two different things at once is also cause for attention. And more than that, we can expect further confusion ahead. The tower was scheduled to be auctioned on 10X, a digital commercial real estate auction platform, in early October. Yet this sale was halted by legal intervention via the McFarland Building Company, a Tulsa-based property developer. The company intervened on claims that the head of Copper Tree Group, Cynthia Blanchard, had already promised to sell them the Price Tower on May 23rd for $1.3 million. The case remains unresolved. Neither 10X nor Copper Tree have commented publicly about this. As the saga continues to unfold, we will keep you posted. We were surprised by the October 18th announcement from the UK National Gallery that they officially banned liquids, citing climate and Gaza protests as their reason. The official statement was made via X/Twitter, and the policy is that no liquids are allowed inside the museum except for breast milk, baby formula, and medications, supposedly, as they say, quote, for the safety of all who visit, end quote. The museum acknowledged that this policy will mean longer entry wait times as security performs more thorough bag searches. They therefore asked visitors to attend with as little as possible. Now, we care, of course, because this is an admitted and direct response to soupings and other forms of protest demonstrations done in the museum throughout this year and the one before. Days before the announcement, the museum put out calls to stop the quote-unquote attacks, saying they caused some visitors to, quote, no longer feel safe in the museum, end quote. While protests are no doubt uncomfortable to witness or be a part of, especially if you're not anticipating it, especially if you're in an art museum and not anticipating it, there is the question of censorship and free speech going on here. Consider quotes from an open letter published on October 15th by the organizations behind some of these protests. They not only invited the National Museum Directors' Council to meet at the National Gallery, they also wrote, quote, people disrupt museum and gallery spaces to break the illusion that everything is fine, end quote. They went on to say, quote, these are the actions, the protest actions, of a public who are scared, angry, but unwilling to give up. and unafraid to use the cultural power of their national institutions when those institutions fail to do so, end quote. Though the soupings may come to an end, protests are sure to continue. We will let you know what form they evolve into next. News of an upcoming potential sale caught our attention as it relates to one of our previous ATPPOs. Maurizio Cattelan's banana artwork is headed to auction and could fetch up to $1 million. The price estimate is according to an October 24th announcement from Sotheby's of the auction occurring November 20th. It'll be called the Now and Contemporary Evening Sale in New York. You may remember from Going Bananas that our work in question is literally a banana duct taped to a white wall. The piece first catapulted to viral infamy when it debuted at Art Basel Miami Beach 2019, with 3 editions selling at that fair up to $150,000 each. They will be sold at Sotheby's now alongside works by Jasper Johns, Alex Colville, Cy Twombly. Between October 28th and November 20th, however, the auction will be a world tour outfit with travel to cities including London, Paris, Milan, Hong Kong, Dubai, Tokyo, more. So we care, of course, because this is a banana and tape and it could sell for millions. And this tells us so much about how we create the value of art. Literally anyone could make this artwork in their own home and have what is ostensibly a multi-million-dollar concept of an artwork in their own home. And yet here this is going on a world tour and being sold alongside some of the modern greats. It's just incredible, really, what we determine is worth attention and so much money. The long and short of it, as David Galperin, Sotheby's head of Contemporary Art Americas, says, is, quote, "The beauty of bringing this work to auction is that it will finally give the public an opportunity to have a say in deciding its value," end quote. And of course, when we know what that value is, when the hammer comes down for the final time, we will tell you the results of this auction. A particularly notable headline from this last week, far-right German politicians made a show of denouncing the Bauhaus movement. The politicians in question are with the far-right Alternative for Germany party, aka the AfD. They recently publicly criticized the Bauhaus movement of the early 20th century and submitted an official notion for a critical reappraisal of the movement. The AfD politicians said that they disagreed with the, quote, "sober, cold, unwelcoming, and unattractive," end quote, aesthetic of Bauhaus art. According to the German publication, let me do my best, Mitteldeutsche Zeitung, the members of AfD titled their motion, quote, "The Wrong Path of Modernism," end quote. This all was submitted to the German parliament in advance of a large-scale initiative over the next 2 years aimed at celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Bauhaus' school's founding in Dessau. Now, I hate to say it, but this is a red flag city in multiple senses, and that is unfortunately why we must pay attention to this story. There is inherent and immediate danger in any political censorship or denouncement of any sort of art just because they don't like it. But further than that, politicians from other German parties are already claiming that the AfD's Bauhaus denouncement recalls similar views espoused by the Nazis, who famously labeled modernist styles, quote, "degenerate art," end quote. For example, Andreas Silbersack, the leader of the Liberal Free Democratic Party, told Mitteldeutsche Zeitung, quote, "Here the AfD is showing the face of National Socialism par excellence," end quote, likely referring to similarities in language between the AfD's denouncement and Nazi denouncement, specific modernist styles. The week also held a little good news. The Whitney Museum is set to waive admission fees for visitors 25 and under for the next 3 years. This initiative will begin mid-December and, according to the Wall Street Journal, is funded by a gift of over $2 million from Whitney board members, artist Julie Meretu and philanthropist Susan Hess. The announcement was made Tuesday, October 22nd, coming months after the museum first piloted its free Friday nights and free Second Sunday programs. We care, of course, because access and also provided by artists. Younger people are among those most financially struggling, yet the most eager to see art, to learn about the world. So there are educational as well as personal growth benefits for not only New Yorkers, but also any American or even international traveler who can get to the Whitney. This initiative is also a great way for them to combat their status as one of the most expensive general admission fees in the city of New York. Last year, their ticket price rose by 20% to $30 total for adults, $24 for students. Museums across the city claim that their rising ticket prices are necessary due to high inflation and slowing attendance. Yet the Whitney appears to, smartly, see this as a chance to expand upon the successes of these existing free programs. It claims that those brought in 300,000 visitors over the last year, an audience that was younger than the museum's average attendee and 60% BIPOC. Special thanks to Julie Moretu and Susan Hess. Now, to be honest with you, honeys, Palestine-related headlines dominated this last week. I could not possibly go into every one of these stories and do them justice without making this episode an hour long, so let's just do the best we can. They included, in no particular order, that the School of the Art Institute of Chicago students held a walkout to protest the war in Gaza. The ACLU filed a lawsuit against a Colorado town over the cancellation of a Native artist's residency after complaints were received about her pro-Palestine activism. Also, Israel bombed an ancient World Heritage site in Lebanon, Tyre, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities around the globe. The Canadian Cultural Center shuttered an exhibition over Palestine references. And finally, an Iranian-German photographer was asked to apologize for saying, quote, "Free Palestine" during his award acceptance speech by the German Photographic Society. That there were so many headlines and that they were so diverse is all the more proof that the art world is getting ever more embroiled in and conflicted over Israel's war. This is due in no small part to the arts' inherent ties to ethics via its ties to humanity, as well as the ability of art to comment as well as make us think and feel beyond words. We also received word that new plans for a Guggenheim outpost in a Basque nature reserve are facing opposition from environmental groups. The plans would establish an outpost spanning two sites, one in the town of Guernica and the other in the Urdubay Reserve. The Basque officials say that the project is still in the early stages and public consultations will take place before any final decisions are made. A quick pros and cons rundown. The pros come, of course, from the supporters of the project, the Guggenheim Foundation and the Basque government. They argue that the project would help the post-industrial Basque countryside by creating jobs, boosting local businesses, and providing essential infrastructure improvements, such as transportation and healthcare, for the entire region. And our cons. Environmental groups, among other critics, worry that it will result in unnecessary damage to the protected natural area. Their concern is that a steady tide of tourists could disrupt the ecosystem, which is home to both local wildlife and migratory birds. This is likely as the new museum is expected to attract at least 140,000 visitors annually. And one other thing to consider here. Recent years have seen an aggressive backlash against tourists and tourism across a good part of Spain, despite the economic and hospitality industry benefits. This very summer saw anti-tourism protests across Barcelona with shouts such as "Tourists go home," the carrying of signs reading "Barcelona is not for sale," and even shooting tourists with water guns. My point here is the Basque government better be sure that the cons are very worth the pros and that tourists actually are welcome. Another headline catching our attention for its relationship to a recent episode. Last week, a petition circulating online and decrying the unlicensed use of creative works to train AI quickly gained over 25,000 artist signatures. The message is very simple, one line in fact, just that unlicensed use for training generative AI, quote, "is a major unjust threat to the livelihoods of the people behind those works and must not be permitted," end quote. The brief petition was authored by music composer and former Stability AI executive Ed Newton-Rex. He resigned last year out of a disagreement with the company's use of copyrighted creative work for free to train its AI under fair use principles. The petition is still gaining signatures from artists and cultural workers. We care in part because coincidence of timing, but also the push, really, for it to be now. Newton Rex himself said he published it recently because, quote, it is a critical time for creators, end quote, to protect their work. Another signing artist said, quote, we urgently need policymakers to support our concerns and tech companies undertaking this vast and widespread commercial exploitation to seek permission and pay compensation, end quote. This is especially true as earlier this year, a California judge ruled that a group of artists' class action lawsuit against 3 major AI generative art companies could continue despite attempts by the companies to halt them. There is impetus and there is the support of the law, so why not now? And the week would not be complete without some weird-ass story, so here's one for you. A sculpture of a turd on Nancy Pelosi's desk appeared on the National Mall last week. Yes, you heard me right. The work in question is a large metallic rendition of Nancy Pelosi's desk, complete with a giant poop emoji style. It was stationed within view of the U.S. Capitol on October 24th. Now, you can surely understand why this shit drew our attention, but we also care because nobody's actually sure why it's there. There is a bronze plaque on it which reads, quote, this memorial honors the brave men and women who broke into the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 to loot, urinate, and defecate throughout these hallowed halls in order to overturn an election, end quote. But it's unclear if that's actually satirizing the idolization of January 6th or serves as an endorsement of Trump. Yet no matter its intentions, it's fascinating that whoever went about installing it did it the right way. The commissioner obtained a permit to do so from the National Park Service. The only further information we've gotten is that the permit request was filed by one Julia Jimenez-Pajzik under the Civic Crafted LLC, and that it will be on view through October 30th. And finally, a new survey on the Silk Road revealed hundreds of medieval structures. The aerial survey results were published in the journal Nature and focused on a pair of archaeological sites known as Tashbulaq and Tugunbulaq, discovered in 2011 and 2015 respectively. They're both located around 3 miles apart in the mountains of Uzbekistan. Tashbulaq, the smaller of the two settlements, was dated to between the 8th and 11th centuries, while Tugunbulaq was occupied between the 6th and 11th centuries. Although archaeology is a little outside our typical wheelhouse, we care about this because of the importance of the Silk Road. Any information on it is crucial to history as it is one of the most, if not the most, significant Eurasian trade routes and civilization connectors of all time. The study used a lot of LiDAR, the remote sensing technique, which can reveal hidden archaeological features, and these results indicated the scale of urbanization in this area was way more expansive than previously known. Michael Fracchetti, the lead author of the study, said that it demonstrates the urbanity and connectedness of the two places. And this urbanity and interconnectivity was all the more impressive because they were so high up. Our source article notes that only about 3% of the current world population lives above that level of 2,000 to 2,200 meters above sea level today, much less in urban contexts. This means that Tashbulaq and Tugunbulaq are the first and probably only ancient or medieval cities located at this elevation, at least in Central Asia, and that forces historians, archaeologists, to seriously reconsider what they know about the area's timeline of urbanization. All right, honeys, that's all I've got for you today. Hope you've enjoyed the headlines. Hope you have a very spooky Halloween, and make sure you still stay hydrated. Do not party and or darty until you die. We want to hydrate, not dihydrate. I wish you all well. Take care of yourselves, and we will talk soon. This podcast is produced, created, hosted, formerly edited, and fact-checked by master's degree holder Celia Bugnout. Chris Meinhold is responsible for our editing, mixing, and our intro and outro music. Special thanks to him for that. And as always, remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, so on all your favorite listening as well as social media channels.